So, my name is Ryan Spade, and I am currently a student at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. I study political science and Spanish, and I'm also, in my free time, the director of the Eau Claire Film Festival. I think that stereotypes are found a lot in horror movies, and a lot of the time I think that the more troubling use of stereotypes in horror movies has to do with like how villains are portrayed to be or have some sort of queer aspect to them. And I've read analyses that have said that there is like this level of progression in the 20th century that kind of mirrors how society is like coming to like be more friendly towards queer people in the sense that like you have um, film that doesn't depict queer people as this like monolithic sort of like villain character, and like you do have a lot of films that vilify trans women and like make them out to be like the literal villain in horror movies. Trans women are like vilified by society, like not turned into like real horror movie villains, but how they are oppressed within society and like how society sees them as like deviant and stuff like that. So like the deviancy that we assign to trans women is like manifesting on screen in these like really reprehensible character roles that I think do a lot to like perpetuate stereotypes of trans women. I don't necessarily think that queer people should be like directly offended by these films, but I do think that they should be critical of them. I think that there's a lot of problem. These films could be a factor in hate crime, but I think that when you look at hate crimes being this like systematic societal issue, you have to look at like how society constructs and portrays people in media. I think, and also I think that it could have to do with the fact that like specifically trans women like really scare society for whatever reason, for reasons that I would say is like obviously like super unfortunate. As for a reason why they might use trans women as like psychopath killers is because subverting gender norms is like super like uncomfortable for people. Huge convergence of factors and reasons why that would be the case, but I'm not going to spend my money supporting the people that made this film that I think has a lot of problematic consequences. If you don't know and you're watching the film, then what you can do is you can start conversations about it. Like this is a really interesting and like important topic because that could easily be dismissed as like, oh, this is just for entertainment, this is just for fun. You have to look at like how important entertainment and media can be in the formation of a person. Just to kind of be aware of like how this is something that could potentially be, bigger than it first seems.
I think the use of stereotypes and misrepresentations of groups of people is rampant in all genres, but those that are more niche, like horror, don't have as much pressure to change or improve. I've noticed that trans women are disproportionately shown like as killers, psychopaths, and criminals at large in horror movies than in drama shows, etc. I don't know that people consciously associate trans women with killers, but they definitely develop a negative connotation for most people, and I think this trend in horror movies definitely plays a part in the very worrying phenomenon. Say that again. The bias people already have against trans people is supported and reinforced by things like this, and it also obscures the fact that trans people of color in particular, are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators, much like those who suffer from mental illness. The LGBTQIAP community should definitely mobilize against this problematic portrayal of some of our most vulnerable. This isn't a case of respectability politics, like excluding non binary people or sex workers because they are more stigmatized and less palatable in mainstream society. This is a vile attack on the core of our community that is spreading the bias and misconceptions of a few people to the greater society. This isn't a case of respectability politics, like excluding non binary people or sex workers because they are more stigmatized and less palatable in mainstream society. This is a vile attack on the core of our community that is spreading the bias and misconceptions of a few people to the greater society. This could definitely be contributing to hate crimes. The existing negative association with trans people from things like this is being amplified as our visibility increases. People are learning to recognize and identify as trans those who may just have confused them before, and this stigmatization of our community is leading to their reaction being violent and all too often deadly.
Dressed to Kill, Sleepaway Camp, Silence of the Lambs, Psycho, Insidious. Why is this? How does it affect society? And what can we do about it? Well, this is a scene from the movie Silence of the Lambs. The antagonist, Buffalo Bill, shown here, is dressing up like a woman. He's wearing a wig made out of his victims, tucking, trying to look beautiful. He's crazy, right? He must be. Not because he's killing women, but he's dressing up like one. You can see this right in this scene. That's what makes him insane. No, what makes him insane is his need to kill. It is odd that within society, transgender people are often the victims, but within horror movies, they're the villains. Is Hollywood saying that in order for trans people to have power, they have to be crazy? The background story of the villain often creates sympathy, but then it changed to hatred and fear, which could encourage violence to the trans community. These movies have encouraged hate crimes. The average person has 1 in 18,000 chance of being murdered. For trans people, it is 1 in 12. It still confuses me why the media does an exact reversal of the transgender victim to the transgender sociopath. Film representation is very important. The movie Jaws had made people afraid of sharks, and the movie It has made people afraid of clowns. So, what sort of idea are we perpetuating about trans women? I'm raising awareness that people need to understand what they are watching and how people are being represented. Not only to understand what is going on, but to start a discussion about it.